partners, how to use Tutor.com. My name is Kathy Long. I'm the Senior Training Specialist for the Center for Instructional Technology. Joining me today as our guest presenter is Laura Lobdell from Tutor.com, and she's going to be walking us through the process of how we use Tutor.com in our IvyLearn platform. So a special welcome to Lauren. We appreciate her being here today. You can, again, ask questions in the question box. I'll be trying to facilitate that area, and Lauren will also be answering those questions during the presentation today. Okay. Give me just one moment to give presenter rights back to Lauren, and we'll get started with today's presentation.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to join your session today. Kathy, thank you for the introduction. So just to make sure everyone can hear me okay, I'm coming in all right.
We can hear you,
Kathy? Okay,
yes,
excellent.
thank you.
So I will go ahead and get started. So thanks, everyone, again for having me. Basically, today what we wanted to do is treat the session kind of like a little refresher course for anyone who maybe has maybe minimal experience with Tutor.com up to now, or for those of you who maybe heard from us several years ago and want to just get kind of a refresher on what's new and how, as you all make the change over to Canvas, what ways will Tutor.com change and some of the functionality that are going to be associated with being a course integrated service for you. So my name is Lauren Lobdell. As Kathy said, I'm the Director of Client Services at Tutor.com for Higher Education Partnerships. I have worked with Ivy Tech for many years now, did a couple pilots with several of the campuses years ago, and then we launched the service as your online tutoring service to all students about 2 years ago now, campus-wide, for online students and campus-based students. So just to give you a sense of, we're delivering a lot of online tutoring to your students year-round. Here's just one comment that one of your students left just in the past couple weeks. So you can see that many students are using our service all the time, and that will not change with Canvas, but there's going to be some additional functionality that will come out of being in Canvas versus Blackboard. So I want to kind of cover some of those things today. So as my agenda, I want to just touch on the tutoring services and really walk you through that experience of how it works from a student perspective, the different sort of tools that the students will have access to, a little bit about who our tutors are that your students are connecting to, give you a little sense on how Tutor.com can be a support not only for the students but also for you in the classroom, whether that's your online classroom or your physical classroom. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can use your Canvas course to engage students to take advantage of things like Tutor.com. So I'm going to give you a few ideas on how I have developed some reminders and tried to get some engagement going about the Tutor.com service within my Canvas course. I'm going to touch on reporting services that are available, and specifically the reporting is for instructors. So you're going to have a certain view of some reporting about who's using the service, how they're using the service, and if the students are struggling. And then we're going to wrap up with Q&A and really just kind of brainstorming on how, as you start to implement your Canvas course, how you might think about helping to get the word out to students. With any service that you provide, it is always really important to make sure students keep it top of mind. And tutoring is especially one of those things, whether that's in-person or online tutoring, because it's something that can fall out of consciousness a lot. But as we know, a lot of students do actually need some extra help and could really benefit from some extra help. Okay, so just to kind of give you a sense of what the Tutor.com service is all about at Ivy Tech, obviously, first and foremost, we are an online tutoring service. So we provide 24/7 on-demand access to online tutors in about 45 different course areas. And all of the sessions are one-to-one, so your students have a personalized session where they get to go in, work with a tutor on whatever they need help with that day. So that's where you really see this one-to-one learning, which is the core part of what we are delivering to Ivy Tech. And students have the opportunity to work with tutors on a variety of different things. They can bring specific assignments, they can bring different concepts or questions that they're getting stuck on, and they can also just bring, ideas that they want to work on for future research projects, things like that. So the tutor is really able to address the session and tailor their approach to that student and the requested needs of that student in that session. So out of the sessions, we can provide a whole bunch of data back to the institution about which of your students are using the service, how they're using it, and then importantly, if any of your students are trying to get extra help but are struggling. And so we provide a whole bunch of reporting institutionally, but for you as the instructor, there's certain data points that we're going to make available to you so you have really good insight into which of your students are taking advantage of the service, and importantly, which students are not taking advantage of these types of support services that can help them. So I'm going to give you an overview of both of these things here in the next few slides. Okay, so just some quick bullets that I've kind of gone over. So again, online tutoring from the student perspective. 24/7 on-demand access to online tutors. So anytime, day or night, that your students are working on their assignments or studying for exams and just really wanting some extra coaching, they can get connected to a tutor within just a couple minutes, all online from their computer, their smart device, their tablet, for example. Again, all of the sessions are one-to-one with subject matter experts that we have recruited, vetted, screened. There's quite a rigorous process involved in how we acquire tutors and work with our tutors on an ongoing basis. I'm not going to spend too much time on that today, but if anyone is interested, I can give kind of some background on how we kind of keep our tutors involved in the quality control process and make sure we have the best tutors supporting your students. The service for students is going to be really easy to access, and right now they're accessing through your Blackboard service, but in the summer term they will start accessing through IvyLearn. And all they really need is an internet-ready device to do that. It doesn't really matter which internet-ready device. Again, a computer, could be laptop, desktop, any of your mobile devices. As long as they have access to the internet, they can get connected to IvyLearn. They can then get connected to Tutor.com via IvyLearn. So students, again, are going to be working on a variety of different things. We have customized our Tutor.com service to really fit with your catalog. So there's a series of courses that we've called out as being supported by our on-demand tutors. And so we have tutors standing by to serve those courses at any given time. Additionally, across the curriculum, we're supporting your students in the writing process. So if a student's in English 111, they can get writing help. Additionally, if they're in some other social science area, they can also get writing help. So it's really writing across the curriculum. And we offer two different ways they can get writing help. One is a real-time on-demand connection, just like they would have if they were in Math 101 or Science 300. But they also have the option for writing to submit an essay and get feedback from a tutor within a 24-hour period, and they can do that in an asynchronous fashion where the tutor will provide the feedback and the student can then pick up the feedback from the tutor. So two different ways they can get writing help, and the rest of the courses are all being supported in an on-demand fashion. Just as we sort of think about what does this mean for you as an instructor, why should you care about the online tutoring service, just some things that I've heard from faculty that I've worked with over the years and ways that they've really thought about this service as being part of their course. It is a link that is going to be embedded within your course page in IvyLearn, so it really becomes a tool that is available for the students in the course and really can be presented to students as such. So for you, it is another place to send students for support, and in particular for your online students where it can be harder to make that sort of human connection, it's another opportunity to get students to have that human experience and be able to talk to another person and work through the course concept. For the purposes of many of your students that are having a lot of challenges, academic challenges, maybe they need that basic remediation and to go do some practice problems, and sort of in the interest of getting them up to speed and keeping them from falling behind, the online tutoring service is a really good place to send some of those students that you do think that need that kind of foundational help in the practice. So you can kind of keep teaching forward in the class and make sure that those students that maybe need that extra time can get it via the online tutoring service. So when I get into the reporting, you'll start to understand what I mean by these next two, but we do have some feedback that we get from our tutors that's going to give you a sense of some of your students and how they're performing in the tutoring sessions. So if they come into tutoring, they're really trying to get some extra help, but they're just not quite there yet, we're going to put a flag on that session for you so you have a sense of which students are trying to get help but maybe still need some extra assistance from you. So it can be a kind of a spotlight or a trigger for you. Additionally, we can give you some trends on what's happening more globally in your course in terms of where are students really asking for help on a topic, subtopic level. Where are they getting really bogged down in the course? Because you probably have a whole bunch of resources or additional problems and practice that students could do in those areas. So we'll give you a little sort of sense of where they're getting stuck, and then that might be something that can help inform you about spending some time or providing additional resources in those subject areas. So let's just kind of walk through the experience now and show you how students are going to access, and then I'll talk about how you are going to access and sort of what you can do in the classroom to really kind of call out the service to students. So again, I mentioned we're covering a whole bunch of course areas. This is just our primary subject list because I didn't have a chance to pull your full course list, but you have a whole bunch of courses that are supported through our service. They are called out by name, so when a student logs into the Tutor.com site, they're going to see not just college algebra, they will see Math 101 or whatever the course number is for your college algebra course. So we've done that mapping of the courses for students so that when they log in, they'll select their course and they'll get connected to a tutor that is appropriate for that course area. Again, all they're going to need as they get ready here is to have an internet-ready device, and then they're going to want to think about what question or concept or assignment they're going to want to work on in that session, and then they can get connected to our service. So as they want to get connected, here's an example of what the course page is going to look like in IvyLearn. This is my own Canvas course page, so it's not exactly the same as yours, but it's pretty similar to what yours is going to look like. So this is my course that I'm teaching, and you can see that Tutor.com becomes one of the course links. So it is a tool for that course. So it's as easy for the students as going into your course page, clicking on Tutor.com, and we're going to open up in a single sign-on launch. They click that link and get passed right to us, and they have their personalized Tutor.com account right within IvyLearn. Now, the view that I'm showing you right now is actually more of the instructor view, and the way that you know that it's the instructor view is this little blue bar you see at the top of the screen here. So for the students, they're going to see everything that's down here from the Tutor.com logo down. You as the instructor are going to see that same screen that students see, but you'll also see this blue bar up at the top. So just keep that in mind because we're going to come back to it later. Okay, so once a student does hit Tutor.com and come into the site, they're going to have a whole bunch of different options that are available to them. The primary thing they're going to be coming for, though, is that on-demand tutoring help. So that's the default option that they're going to have when they come over to the site. They're going to fill out this survey that is here on the screen, selecting the course that they want help with, and then they're going to put in that question, that concept, that assignment, whatever they'd like to work on in the session. I'll come back to some of these other tools that we have up here as well in just a few slides. Okay, so now we're on the On-Demand tab. I've decided I need help with Accounting 101 today, and then I'm going to fill out specifically what I want help with in Accounting 101. And I'm going to get then connected when I hit this Get a Tutor button. And I'm going to be launched into our online classroom where we're going to get to work with an accounting expert tutor. So just to give you a quick sense of tutors generally, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today. As I said, we very rigorously screen our tutors. They are all people on the other end that have gone through, they come from various backgrounds. There's no sort of you have to be a teacher to teach with or to be a tutor with us requirement, but they're all going to go through the same very intense vetting process where they have to prove their subject matter expertise, and then they are going to have to go through a mock session, go through a background check. They're going to have quite a few hurdles they'll have to get through to even become a tutor with us. From there, they're going to get assigned out to a mentor. And Sharon here, she is one of our tutors in the English and essay writing area. She's actually a mentor at this point. And a mentor is kind of like a senior tutor that we've elevated because they had really great ratings and they use really excellent methodology in their tutoring sessions. And so now they can get elevated to manage a team of tutors. So every tutor at Tutor.com has a mentor who they can work with and who's going to coach them on all of their sessions and making sure that they're delivering high quality sessions. So this is just to give you a little face of the 3,000 plus tutors that are serving students around the clock in various disciplines at Tutor.com. So we do a very rigorous process to hire the best tutors, and then we keep working and mentoring them throughout their time working for us. So we have a very rigorous quality control process. So as the student hits that Get a Tutor button, they're going to get launched into our online classroom, and it's fairly simple to use classroom, but the primary features here that they can use the chat tool on the right-hand side to be chatting and texting back and forth with their tutors. And then on the left-hand side, they're going to have some simple-to-use tools like the pen tool. They can type, they can drag and drop shapes, and they're going to do that here on the whiteboard. So the whiteboard's where they're going to work out problems. And just to show you sort of what that looks like, this is where they're starting to work on a math problem. They need to plot points, and so the tutor and student are chatting on the right-hand side, and then they're working out the problem and starting to graph on the left-hand side using the whiteboard space. So it's a very collaborative way to have a discussion and help a student visualize and really step-by-step break down what the concept or the question is that they need to work on. So many of your students are going to be coming for writing help, or again, I said that's across the curriculum. So students that would like to work on a writing assignment, they can do it in a live synchronous fashion like you see on this screen. And what happens is they hit this share a file button in the classroom. They can pull in the file from their desktop, or if they have one stored to their Tutor.com account, and it's going to then replace the whiteboard, and they're going to be able to see the essay together and be working through it in a collaborative fashion. They don't only have the ability to bring in a Word document, they can bring in PowerPoints, Excel files, screenshots. So depending on what they're working on, they may bring in different kinds of file types. Tutors also have the ability to bring in web resources to share with the student. So if they are needing to see a problem visualized, so they could talk through the steps of each of the steps for that particular kind of problem, or maybe they're doing a research discussion and they're starting to brainstorm what a student should work on for a paper assignment, they might bring in some resources like you see here, where they can start to talk about what's a good resource, what's not a good resource, what is a good idea for this topic. So tutors will bring these web resources into the classroom to help facilitate the discussion and give students some examples to work with. And there are really kind of takeaways from the session. Everything that happens in the classroom, the chat, the whiteboards, the files, and the websites, everything gets archived for the student automatically, so they'll be able to go back and see any of the material they exchanged in their tutoring session. Importantly, you as the instructor will also have access to those transcripts if you do have any questions about what's going on with some of your students. So we also have the drop-off writing service, and this is where the students who maybe don't have as much time to sit for a tutoring session for 30 or 40 minutes may want to just get some static feedback so they have a sense of where they need to start working on their revision process. So they can kind of fill out a few questions here, give the tutor some context, and then they're going to get feedback from the tutor within a 24-hour period. So the tutor is going to send back the document with some inline and annotated comments, areas the student needs to take a look at, or maybe some common mistakes that they're making. Then additionally, they're going to send them a summary feedback form so that the student can get kind of a comprehensive view of what the tutor would recommend for the student to review and next steps for that paper. So I mentioned that students will have access to any of their previous sessions. We do give them personalized accounts when they sign in from Canvas. So they'll be able to go to their sessions page and see any of the sessions that they've had with our tutors, whether it's an online or a live session, an on-demand session, or it's a drop-off session. The students can access any of that archived material on their sessions page. They also can highlight tutors that they really like and want to be able to connect with again as a favorite tutor, and then they can follow those tutors on the favorite tutor schedule. I also mentioned they can store files to their Tutor.com account. They will do that in the Tutor.com locker. So they have a cloud storage space, basically. Here's just a quick screen grab of what a session transcript looks like for the student. So they can pull up any of the resources they exchanged. They'll know when they worked on it, what they worked on, who they worked with. They can replay it as a video. They can view it as a transcript. They can email the transcript. So they have a few different options for what they can do with their previous session. Great. So that's the student experience of using Tutor.com. Once they launch over from IvyLearn, they're going to come to the site and they'll have all of these different features that I've just covered for you. Let me just stop briefly and see if there's any questions I should just address while we're in the student section here. One question here is, do you know what the process is for students to get more tutoring hours once their 15 expire? And it looks like Kathy has actually addressed some of these questions, but I did want to just note that we do put an amount of an allotment basically on each student account for each semester. So when they come over from IvyLearn, they will have assigned to their account 15 hours of tutoring as a maximum per semester. So it refreshes each and every semester. So it's not by course, it's by semester. 15 hours is quite a lot of tutoring, so most students don't hit that amount. But for some of the students who really, it becomes a sincere part of their academic experience and they really need the support, we do grant additional time in those cases or get them help from additional resources. So we have a main contact that's in the instructional design office who really vets those requests and then can approve and assign additional time when it seems applicable or seems like that's appropriate for that student. Okay, I think I answered this next question. I do just want to make sure that I am clear, and it looks like Kathy did as well. But again, it's going to be right on that course menu, on that sidebar. When a student clicks into the course in IvyLearn, right down the sidebar, it's going to be a widget on the sidebar there, Tutor.com. So it's as easy as going to the course and clicking that link. That is also importantly not just where students are going to access, but you can access as the instructor as well. So when you access it, you're going to see that faculty view that I showed a few slides ago, and I'll bring up again. Okay, so let's move forward. So as you think about transitioning here to your IvyLearn platform, and some of the really great benefits of using Canvas is that it's a really great way to facilitate a course, we found. So I did a couple things in my own Canvas course just to kind of show you how we can call out Tutor.com and try to get some students engaged in using the tutoring service. So one thing to think about, and I've had a whole bunch of schools do this to great success, is that when you start to get to some of those relevant points in the course, that's when something like Tutor.com is going to be really important to students. At the beginning of the semester, it's important to let them know, maybe via announcement or via your syllabus and via other channels that we use to promote the service to your students. But as you get to exam time, like we've got finals coming up in a few weeks, or maybe it's an assignment that you give to students that you know is particularly challenging, that's a great time to start socializing the service using your Canvas or IvyLearn course. So in this example here, I have started a discussion thread on have they used online tutoring yet? And the idea is you can get students to start talking about their experiences. You can give them some practice problems that they might use. Maybe some of you are probably more familiar with using discussions in a real-world setting than I am, but this is a great way to kind of get students chatting with each other, especially online students. Word of mouth is a really powerful tool for something like online tutoring and other services that you provide. And because in an online setting we don't have as much opportunity as we do when some students are sitting next to each other in a classroom, this is a great way for you to sort of queue up discussion on resources that are really valuable for students, because a lot of times students prefer to hear from their peers on things, right? You can promote it, the school can promote it, their advisor can promote it, whomever, but when they hear from their peer students, that time speaks volumes to another student who sees it as, oh, that student's kind of like me. They've got kids and they're working full-time job and they've not taken math in a long time. So sort of seeing from peer students that same shared experience will help validate this kind of service, especially for some of those students who maybe are a little hesitant about using tutoring at first. So this is one idea you can use in Canvas. Now another thing that I like to do, and we will help supply you with materials if you're interested, is to post course announcements. So these are more global announcements, not necessarily trying to get discussion going, but to remind students at relevant times in the term. So one of the articles we have been promoting recently is just giving students a sense of time, right? Because I think one of the things some students think is they don't have time to use a service like Tutor.com. So this link could sit here for some students all, 2 years, 3 years, however long they're at Ivy Tech, and they will never use it because they think they don't have time for tutoring. So the theme here of this particular announcement was to remind them that just a few minutes can help them have a breakthrough. Instead of staring at your book for a few hours, really stressed out and confused, you can get quick and easy help. It's right there. It's part of the course experience. So this is one graphic post that I put into my classroom just to remind students as we get into some of the harder coursework and we're starting to get to finals that it really doesn't take as much time as they think. So that's just one example. You can do a lot of different kinds of just quick reminders about services like Tutor.com, but announcements are a really good way to sort of chime in to students, especially when the relevancy factor is high. Last but not least, you have the ability in your IvyLearn course to upload files typically. So in my course, for example, I added a couple resources on Tutor.com. Now you don't have to keep them there the whole term, but for example, we have a How It Works guide that has been really helpful for some students. So I uploaded the How It Works guide here. I also, again, like to feature students telling students about services. So I uploaded a video, and I'm probably only going to keep it there a short amount of time, but just to give students some resources and put a face on what is online tutoring, instead of sort of this, this service that they have that they aren't really clear on. These kinds of resources really make it a little bit more tangible for students and help some students to actually take advantage of these services that might be good for them. Okay, so those are a few ideas on how you might actually use your course space in IvyLearn to promote our service in particular, because we happen to be one of your course integrated tools. but you probably have other tools in the course too that you can call out using some of these features. And the nice thing about using Canvas as a platform is I think some of these features that are in the classroom are really quite easy to use and easy to implement without having to do too much heavy lifting. All these things I just showed you took me about 10 minutes in total to do. So it's not as if you have to spend hours coding or pulling HTML. It was very simple to just add these files, add the announcement, and add the discussion. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears here. Let me just check and make sure I've answered any questions. Okay, it looks like everything has been answered. So I'll come back to those at the end. Okay, so let's turn and talk about reporting. So I mentioned that you can also access Tutor.com as if you were a student. You're going to click that same link on the course menu in IvyLearn. But because you are an instructor, you're going to have a different view than your students. You're going to have that blue bar that I showed you at the top, and I'll bring that screenshot back up in a few minutes. But the idea is that you, as the instructor, we want you to have a good perspective on which of your students are using the service. And the only reason it's not so you can be big brother about it necessarily is, but it's another way for you to get a sense of which of your students are getting extra help, pursuing extra help, so that it spotlights for you, are there some students who are getting help but could use some extra assistance from you directly. It also will help you get a sense of if there are students you're recommending use tutoring or could really use and benefit from it, but they're not, that's another opportunity for you to remind them or call out to them that tutoring could be very beneficial. So I'm going to just kind of talk through some of the reporting that you can get access to and some of the insight that the tutor is going to provide back to you as the instructor through some of these usage reports. So when you hit that blue bar in the Tutor.com platform from IvyLearn, you're going to go into what is called the client portal. In the client portal, there's various reports, including some insight that we pull from the tutors. So this is a quick screen grab of a survey we ask our tutors to fill out at the end of every session, and they are doing an assessment of your student's performance in that session. So they rate the prerequisite knowledge the student seems to come to the session with about that topic or that question or that assignment. They then do a rating of that student's achieved mastery of the concept. The student walk away fully understanding how to do that kind of problem, or are they really kind of stuck and needing some extra help? We also have the tutor do a classification. So this is letting you know topically where the students are asking for help. Not just that it was a Math 101 session, but what within Math 101 was the student asking about in this session. So we can then take this information and put it into reports that will be helpful to you in understanding how your students are doing and where they're getting stuck. So again, you're going to go into the client portal. This is the view you're going to see. There's this little button up here, take me to the client portal. Now you're going to be locked down to just your course, so it's not as if you're going to be able to see everything, but you will be able to see certain tool sets that are in the client portal. The very first thing is going to be your dashboard. Now this is a very high volume program, so you should not expect to see 1,900 tutoring sessions on your dashboard, but you would see within the range that you have set for your dashboard how many sessions have occurred. If a student's been flagged by the tutors for certain things we call early alerts, then you would be able to see which of those students have been flagged, and I'll just clarify those in a second because I don't want to confuse you with starfish early alerts. You'll see how many of your students are actually using the service. You can ignore this admin one, but you'll see some other things about the student satisfaction. You'll see how long students are spending typically in those sessions. So you'll have some fast facts when you first sign in. Next up, you'll have a couple reports. You have 3 different kinds of reports that you can generate to get a sense of who's using the service. So this is the first report, and this is really just a good summary for you of which of my students are taking advantage of the service and where are they trying to get some extra help. But we want to do that deeper dive, as I mentioned, with the tutors giving you that assessment of what they thought about the student's performance and then that classification of the content. So we're going to take that information and put it into the report for you as well. So you're going to run, and I'm sorry my slide is coming out a little funky here in this setting, but you're going to have a report called the Individual Student Sessions Report that you can generate that will show you each and every session that your students have in a semester for your course. So you'll see which students used, some student information. You'll see what they were working on in that session. You'll see when they had the session, date and time, how much time they spent, and if they've been flagged for anything that we call at Tutor.com early alert. Now, the things that would trigger an early alert for a student would be if the tutor rated that the student had low prerequisite knowledge, they would initiate an alert on that session. If the student walked away not having achieved mastery of the concept, we're going to put an early alert on those sessions. So anytime you see in the early alert columns the value is true, that means that the tutor has given a flag to that student, just letting you know that the student is trying to get some extra help, but they either have really low prerequisite knowledge or they have not achieved mastery of that concept. So that might be a good spotlight for you that this student could use some extra intervention, some extra help. If you want to, when you sign into the client portal, you can sign up for email notices anytime your student has been flagged for an early alert. So you do have that option. You'll get prompted when you connect to the client portal. You do not have to opt into them because you can always view the reports, but you can sign up for them should you want to. And just to give you a sense, here's just another screenshot of what the session will look like. There will also be a column for the session transcript should you want to be able to dig into that student session and get a sense of why the tutor flagged that tutor that student should have an early alert. You can also export any of these reports to Excel or a PDF should you want to take all of your sessions from that term and be able to look at them in Excel. You can do that with any of these reports that you're generating in the client portal. The last report that we provide to you is going to be what's called the topic drill down, and this is where the tutor has done that topical categorization for you. So not just that the student came for Math 101 help, but within Math 101, where are they actually needing sincere help? So the most questions coming in are coming in these kind of top categories here. And these are probably, for those of you that have taught the courses before, these aren't going to be shocking to you, but it might help validate for you where you might add some resources. Maybe in Canvas you add some additional files or practice problems to help students as they get to some of these key concepts. So it's kind of more of a look back report once the term ends, but it can help just kind of, again, spotlight for you where are multiple students getting stuck in the course and needing extra tutoring assistance. Now, of course, all of these reports are only going to be as meaningful as which students use the service and how many within your course use the service. So if you don't have any students using, you will not have much in your reports. If you have a lot of students using, you will have quite meaningful data in your reports that will give you some of this insight over time. So something to keep in mind. I think it's always important to remember looking at these reports gives you a sense of who's using and how they're using, but it also tells you, again, who's not using. And that's that's a really important question because a lot of times we find some of the students who could really use tutoring don't use, and this is a good way to sort of keep on top of that. So let's just start to wrap up here with some ideas and some questions. But I think the primary objective here is you're getting your IvyLearn course underway, and you want to think about when would it be relevant to a student to hear about a service like Tutor.com, and when that relevancy comes up, what tools do I have to bubble this up for students, basically. So I want to make sure I arm you all with some resources here. We have something called the Client Resource Center. This is a site where you can go and pull things like the How It Works guide, How It Works video, some of those graphics I was sharing earlier. We do a lot of different kinds of promotional campaigns throughout the year, and we create little templates that instructors can use right within your course. If you wanted to do a little announcement to remind students as we're heading to finals, you could go to the Client Resource Center, pull that content, copy and paste, and your course announcement's ready to go. So you don't have to do the hard work of creating the content. We've really already done a lot of that for you, and this is a resource for you to pull some of these pieces of information. And here's some quick kind of graphics that we've been creating over time that we can provide to you as well. You can find some of these on the Client Resource Center, but they're just kind of fun, splashy graphics that will kind of be eye-catching for a student. So we always recommend when you do an announcement, you try to include something graphic, something that's going to be eye-catching for the students, because there's a lot of information circulating out there. So I think anytime you can add something graphical, especially in the social media era that we live in, that's going to sort of help students to plug into certain things. So that might even be helpful to you as you're thinking about some of your other resources in the class, and maybe some other reminders you want to do. It's really quite simple. There's a lot of templates out there online that you can use to create these little graphics quite easily. So something to keep in mind. So let me just wrap up with a few things here as we start to think about IvyLearn in the future and how you can start to kind of promote Tutor.com and other resources that are course-embedded tools. So I think the first thing is, again, remembering that login process. It's as simple as making sure you and your students get to the course page, and just that link on the sidebar for Tutor.com will get students connected to the site, will also get you connected to the site. I'll put this into the chat in a minute, but there's also the Client Resource Center, which is a tool for you outside of outside of IvyLearn, rather, that is there to give you some content to work with. So how it works guides and videos, and any little tools you want to use to promote the service via announcements or discussion boards. We have a lot of canned templates ready to go on the Client Resource Center. Share with colleagues. So a lot of you that are here today have colleagues who could not attend. It's always important to sort of spread that word of mouth with colleagues who you think this will be relevant for, especially as you're launching a whole new system, not just with Tutor.com, but just a whole new system in general. It's always important to be kind of sharing best practices with colleagues. So highly recommended you remind them about Tutor.com, but also share some of the tips about your experience using IvyLearn in the near future. So then a few things just for students. We've already placed the course link, so you won't have to worry about doing that. You may think about adding some information about online tutoring to your course syllabus. That's always a good way to sort of set the tone for the term. You then want to think about times where you can mention it in class, or maybe even create some course discussion, like I showed you that course discussion board I had started. You may want to post announcements throughout the term, whether you want to kick it off at the beginning of a term or remind students throughout the term at different kind of relevant periods. Those are really easy tools to do. You can just throw some text into those announcements, maybe throw a graphic in there, and those can get posted very quickly. I think email is still powerful for some students, so just reminding them about services like this, that's significant assignments and exams. You know what those are better than we do when we're kind of at a global marketing perspective. So those are a good thing to think about, for especially those students you see that are starting to fall behind. Some of you may even make tutoring a part of an assignment. I know some Ivy Tech instructors who do this already, but it is something you can ask students to do a tutoring session as part of an assignment, or for extra credit. They can submit their tutoring transcript to you as part of that assignment. And then also using your reporting. So you have access to this reporting to understand who's using tutoring and who isn't using tutoring. That can really help inform you whether it's a good idea to do a reminder out to students, or if there's certain students you see that are struggling in the tutoring sessions, they've got some of those early alert flags I mentioned, you may want to kind of reach out to those students and just check in and make sure that they're on track. You also may want to check in with some students who you've advised to use tutoring but maybe are not using the service. So use your reporting to identify trends and even spotlight issues that might be coming up with specific students. So those are my kind of best practices here. So at this point I've covered all the information I wanted to cover for the day. I want to stop and answer any questions that have come up, or if anybody has any ideas of how they're thinking about incorporating some of these ideas into your course as you launch IvyLearn. Be happy to hear ideas as well. So let's see. Also feel free to reach out to me if you do want to get some of these content items or have any questions after the session. I'm happy to answer questions offline as well. All right.
Lauren, as we wait for any additional questions that come in, I just want to thank you for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. You've given us a lot of great information and definitely a view that we don't normally get to see with the reporting and definitely how a tutoring session is offered once you get into the tutoring service. So we really do appreciate your time and also the demonstration of how that absolutely works. Here in just a few minutes, as we continue to wait for a couple questions to come in, I am going to do just a quick brief overview of how we add the Tutor.com link to either a course module or to our course menu. So please feel free to continue to post those questions in the question box, and we'll be definitely answering those for you as we finish up here our presentation for today. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start that presentation. I see that Maureen has a question about how you would access Tutor.com via a discussion board assignment. You would probably give directions to that link versus necessarily accessing Tutor.com through an actual discussion board assignment. Let me show you a couple ways that you can add that content into the IvyLearn platform. And Maureen, please, Lauren, please feel free to jump in with any suggestions you might have as well as we go through this. All right, by default, when we log into our IvyLearn platform, we open up to our dashboard area, and we are looking at our dashboard content area right now, and you'll see a list of my course cards here, which is how I access my class. So I'm going to go ahead and go into, I'm going to select my IvyLearn, one of my demo courses. Okay. And this opens up to our home page, and our home page by default, if we're using the statewide template, accesses our course modules, and our course modules is where our content, course content is typically added. Here is our course menu on the left side of the page, and anytime any of these areas are kind of grayed out, it means it's not currently available to students. And as we look at this course menu, even in the grayed out areas, we're not currently seeing Tutor.com as our menu item. So how do we do that? We're going to add that by going into our settings area. When we click settings, you'll see that there's a series of tabs across the top of the page. Okay, so we're going to go to navigation, because navigation is where we can control our course menu items. Okay, so this upper area here are all of the items that are currently viewable to students in the student view. And when I scroll down through here, there's a lot of third-party content as well as IvyLearn tools that we can add to our menu. Okay, you'll see that Tutor.com is already an LTI or a tool that we've added to our statewide navigation menu. So we use Tutor.com through the whole system, so we've added this application directly for you instead of you having to add it to your course menu. We just now need to make it available to students. I can do that by dragging and dropping up into the top part of my screen, which is, since I have to scroll up and down, might not be my best option. Or I can go over here beside the settings icon and I can click this little triangle and I can enable this particular tool. I click enable and it automatically moves it up to my area here. Try that again, enable. Okay, and you see that it's been added to the bottom of my course menu. I have to save my changes. I can also drag and drop if I want Tutor.com to be in a different location. So maybe I want that above Ivy Advising, and I can change my order. And I'm going to click Save. Okay, and for our perspective here, I want to show you what this looks like in our student view. So when I click Student View, remember that's a faculty tool, and I get this really bright pink banner at the bottom of the page that lets me know that I'm in student view. But you'll notice my course menu from the student view is now I have Tutor.com right here on my course menu. So as an instructor, you want to make sure that you are engaging or making Tutor.com available on your course menu. Okay, and when the student clicks on that, and it may or may not work because I'm in student preview mode, okay. So this is the test student, so it automatically recognizes this as my test student. If I was logged in as myself as an instructor, it would say, hi, Catherine Long. Every student starts out with 15 hours at the beginning of every semester. We did have a question earlier, what do we do if students need more hours? And they simply put in a help desk ticket. One of our coordinators will send out a little survey how they're using that particular service, and then we usually give them 10 additional hours. Lauren mentioned that there are a lot of different types of topics. As from a student perspective or even as an instructor perspective, when I click typing or topic, you'll see we have everything from accounting all through chemistry, Spanish, English courses, math, sociology, psychology. These are all of our tutoring areas that we provide here at Ivy Tech Community College. Okay, so students would just select their subject. They would select their region, what their home region is, and they can enter their question and click Connect Now. Okay, so this is the student view, and this is when we add that to the course menu. I'm going to go ahead and leave my student view because I also want to show you how you can directly add a Tutor.com link within your module. So remember, modules are now our new class sessions. This is where we're going to allow our students to go through a sequential learning process. I like to have everything contained personally into that module that follows our Quality Matters standards based on easy navigation and also aligning our learning objectives with assessments. So I'm going to add a Tutor.com link directly into a module area. So I'm going to click Module, and maybe I'm getting ready for a midterm or even a test, or I want to introduce our students to our Tutor.com service from our very first session. So when I'm in my Module 1, this is the index view. Okay. Anytime I want to add anything to the module, we're going to click the plus button. When I click the plus button, I can now add a tool. Now, this is a third-party partner, so this is an external tool. Okay, we want to add the external tool, and in this case, Tutor.com. I go through the list of all of my third-party services until I find Tutor.com. I highlight it, I click it, and you'll notice that there's a URL that suddenly appears, and then I click Add Item. Okay. You'll now notice that it's been added to my module. It's located at the bottom of my page, and it's currently not published. So anything in Blackboard, in our IvyLearn platform, to make that item available, I need to publish it. So I'm going to click the little cloud, and when I click Publish, you'll see that the whole thing turns green, and there's a little check mark. So now when I go into my module, and the module allows us to scroll through content one slide at a time. And this is actually the course template. I don't actually have content located in here necessarily yet. There's an assignment. Okay, and here I am in my Tutor.com. Okay, so it's built right into my course module for my students. Now, as an instructor, this is really nice. It automatically identifies my role in the class. So even if I click on this module link to Tutor.com when I'm not in student preview or even here on the course menu, it's going to let me go to that client portal. And this is where I can see reporting information about my very specific course. On the GoToWebinar control panel under handouts, I did add a sample report. So every month, Ivy Tech receives a great report from our Tutor.com partners about the usage as a whole, how many sessions we've used, how many students have participated, how many hours have been used. So just like that course report that Lauren was sharing with you, we also have that available from the whole statewide system. One of the things I think you'll find interesting in there is it does include comments about what students think and how they feel about our tutoring services. And every day, every time we do one of these reports, we have a 96 to 98, 99% approval rating. Students really love Tutor.com. So as an instructor, if we can help them get past the fear of asking for help, or feeling like they are intimidated by asking those questions, if we can get them past that, I think they'll really enjoy the Tutor.com environment and the assistance that they get there. The students who do use it are usually repeat customers, and again, we have like a 96 to 98% approval rating depending on which month it is. Okay, it seems like we have another question here. So once I'm in the module, where is the link for external resources? We don't necessarily have, if you're talking about external resources as a resource link like we do in Blackboard, but what we do have is when we create modules, we can add that link. So let me walk you through that again. So we go into our module, I click plus, because anytime I add content to our IvyLearn platform, I'm going to add it to the module level. It's going to prompt me from a pull-down menu what type of item I want to add. Okay, so you mentioned before too, Lauren showed us that there are some great templates that they've created for us, some files, some how-to type of documents. If we've added that into our files, we could also access it here and add a file, instructions or something like that. But to add the Tutor.com, it's an external tool, so we click external tool. We scroll down until we find Tutor.com. We just click on it, and it automatically populates that URL. Okay. And then I click Add Item. And when I do that, it automatically populates within my content area. And you'll see I've done it twice, and one's published and one is not. If I've accidentally added it to the wrong area and I wanted to add it to Module 2, I could probably drag and drop into that area, or I can just remove the unwanted item here. Okay, so that's how we add Tutor.com to our course menu and also into our course content areas. Okay. That kind of concludes our presentation today. I want to thank Lauren again for being such a wonderful presenter and providing us with some great information today. We will have an archived webinar presentation of this that will be available on our Ivy Tech IvyLearn web page, and that's also available to you in your chat box, so you can see that link located there. We will stay on the line if you have any additional questions. If you would like to exit out of the presentation at any time, you can go to your GoToWebinar control panel, and up in the right-hand corner, just click the X to exit. Otherwise, we'll stay on the line with you for just a few more minutes to answer any questions that you may have. And again, thank you very much to Tutor.com for their services and their presentation today.